Hello folks, Livewire coming at you with a Game Pass review of Halibut. Developed by Slow Bros and using the Unity game engine, this narrative-driven adventure game features handcrafted visuals and assets which really give everything a unique looking art style. But without further ado, let's review. The story takes place on a ship called the FEDORA, a ship that was launched from Earth 250 years prior. The ship was tasked with finding a suitable planet for life because of the apparent dire situation on Earth, which would have soon made it uninhabitable. The ship, however, crash-landed on a planet comprised of only water, and the FEDORA has been submerged in water for a number of years. You will be playing the part of Halibut, a maintenance man aboard the FEDORA. From the start of the game, you'll be awoken by the Major, confronting you for not paying your trans pass. The trans system in this game is a tube system that uses water to move you from place to place. It's owned by the All Water Corporation. This sequence in the beginning somewhat sets the foundation of the plotline you'll experience as you progress through the game. Your main point of contact will be Professor Jeanne Mareaux, one of the lead scientists and head of the lab aboard the FEDORA. During the early stages of the game, not only will you go through a host of different in-game trainings, teaching you how to use and do very basic things such as using the microscope, but you'll also be sent to run errands and do very menial tasks. This allows you to explore the FEDORA and meet a host of different characters along the way, such as Cyrus, Sunny, Felix, Chris, Bridget, and Tommy, to name a few. As you move forward in the story, you'll discover that plans are being put in place to relaunch into space so that the FEDORA can continue its search for a suitable planet. It's uncovered, however, that the window of time to do this is limited due to the pending intense solar flares, which will make a relaunch impossible afterwards. The relaunch is crucial due to the worry that the FEDORA will not have enough power to sustain life for much longer. A plan is put in motion to get the FEDORA relaunched again into space, with two characters scrambling to figure out a solution, Cyrus and Slippy. The two present their plans at a public gathering of sorts. Cyrus is unable to get the correct calculations, and so to his dismay, the plan that ultimately wins out is Slippy's plan to freeze the water around the FEDORA using his AC system, causing it to float to the surface of the water and then relaunch from there. Around this same time, Harold encounters a resident alien humanoid who eventually becomes known as WIIU that has become trapped in the filtration system. While nursing WIIU back to health, Harold develops a deep connection and a friendship with this newly discovered creature. Once healthy, Professor Moreau partners with WIIU and discovered that the particles found in WIIU's genetic makeup contain a massive amount of energy. Because Moreau is doubtful of Slippy's relaunch plan, she wants to research the energy source further because she feels that this could potentially be used to launch the FEDORA back into space. Harold is tasked with traveling back to where WIIU and her kind, known as the Flumminglim, reside to discover the source of the particles, which is eventually revealed as an underwater cave inside the cave where the Flumminglim live. After some preparations, Harold and WIIU explore the underwater cave. During the exploration, Harold and WIIU are knocked unconscious, and we see the characters go through something that can only be described as an internal struggle, with a recap of Harold and WIIU's life and what it means and what is most important in it. You then see the characters encounter the source of the energy in the cave. They do finally emerge 2 weeks later, unconscious. When Bridget wakes them up, Harold is holding a container, its contents being the energy source from the cave, which they can certainly use to help power the FEDORA. However, Bridget advises them that they have lost all communications with the FEDORA and that the tube system is disconnected, so they cannot travel there via the all-water tube system. They must use the newly created submarine Bridget engineered to get there. On approach to the FEDORA, you can see the entire ship is encased in a block of ice. You find out that Slippy's plan to relaunch the FEDORA wasn't a relaunch plan at all. He used the situation to hide his real plan, which is to turn the entire planet into a supersized, wintry amusement park. You eventually dock onto the unused part of the FEDORA, lift the lockdown, leading to a confrontation with Slippy. After all of this, it's apparent to everyone that the FEDORA has missed its launch window, until Harold reveals something that he and a secret group called the Lightkeepers discovered a little while back. Because all the time aboard the FEDORA is digital, the CEO of Allwater had very gradually been adjusting the time, making the days appear to go by quicker than what it actually was. This revelation means that the FEDORA has more time to make the launch and that Cyrus's calculations were correct all along. When it's time to say his goodbyes to Wii U, Harold struggles with the idea of leaving and realizes that this is where he is meant to be. He tells Professor Mareaux that he isn't leaving with the Fedora and plans to stay there where Wii U and her kind are. The Fedora successfully launches, and that's the end of the game. So when I initially wrote this review, I wanted to try and make it without spoilers, but I just couldn't do it. Because without spoilers, you really don't get a full appreciation for what the developers were trying to get across, which to me was in part to follow your heart and do what makes you happy, but also that everyone has a place in this world and belongs, no matter who you are. Now there are some finer details that I left out, so hopefully when you do play the game, there will still be some surprises. Now, the game does a great job at character development, in particular with Harold, who we see go from someone who appears to be just a lazy and flighty individual to someone who by the end becomes the hero and saves the Fedora. I do think, however, they perhaps spent a little too long on character development, because I would say for the first 70% of the game, it really just felt like nothing was going on except you going around and doing tasks here and there all over the Fedora. I almost stopped playing because I just got so bored with just doing menial tasks, and the story just crept along at a snail's pace. But once you explore the cave, everything moves beautifully. Perhaps some quicker changes of scenery or simply just chopping some character development time would have helped move the story along better. But when you take everything in as a whole, the story is thought-provoking and beautiful. Alright, let's move on and talk about the gameplay. Now I can appreciate a narrative-driven game as much as the next gamer, but I must be honest, I was almost bored to death with the gameplay in Harold Halibut. One night I literally fell asleep while playing it. Now that might come across as a bit harsh, and maybe it is, but I'll explain where I'm coming from. My main gripe with this game is that there is next to nothing to do other than walk around and just interact with random things and talk to people. I know that this is in a way what a narrative game is, but with a good number of ones I've played, there is at least something to get your brain moving. This game does feature a few minor puzzles, if you really want to call them that, but even those are far and few between. And the fact that Harold just lollygags around at a snail's pace without any way of making him move any faster is just frustrating. I also didn't come away impressed with the dialogue system. You're given choice on what to say, but it appears that everything you say is without consequence. Now, I didn't do multiple playthroughs to confirm that, but I read up on it, and it doesn't appear that anything you say changes any of the outcomes of what happens in the game, and that's really disappointing. All in all, the gameplay was uninspiring, and the truth is, I couldn't have been happier when the ending credits rolled. Now, let's talk about something that makes this game stand out a bit: the graphics, or more specifically, the art style. As mentioned in the intro, the developers crafted everything you see mostly out of brick and clay. They then created 3D images of everything and imported them into the gaming engine. I can only imagine the time spent doing all of this, but the effort really shows up as it created one of the most unique looking game designs I've seen in a long time. If you're interested in learning more about that process, I'd encourage you to just look it up. There are countless articles written and videos recorded online about how this process came to be, going into extreme detail. Trust me when I say it's worth the time investment looking into it. Sound-wise, let's first talk about the voice acting. You'll encounter over 20 different voice actors in Harold Halibut, which is pretty impressive for a game and developer of this size. This, in my opinion, is a really underrated investment in a game, because when you encounter the same voice actor over and over and over again, it can really mess with the immersion factor of that said game. It really shouldn't come as a surprise for this game because of how much they put into crafting the graphic side of things. It would be disappointing if they skimped out on the voice acting. Now, outside of the voice acting, I'd say that the rest of the things in the sound category, like music and sound effects, are decent. The background music is more of a musical pad more than anything else, at least until the cave hole sequence, but there are a few moving tunes throughout, like the submarine sequence near the end of the game. The ambient noises in the game are plenty and certainly fit the environment, although there really isn't anything sound-wise that you're going to be blown away by. Okay, now that we're done with the review, let's give it a score. When it comes to Harold Halibut, I give it a 6.4. Look, I am all for narrative games, especially when the story is good. But I thought that this game overall was just so boring, it really just made you forget about the story you were supposed to be focusing on. And while the art design is absolutely amazing, especially considering the great lengths the developers went to make it happen, the game kind of loses sight of the fact that in order to keep people engaged, you have to have interesting dialogue and some sort of interesting gameplay to go along with it. But that's it. As always, I hope you found this review fair and informative, and if you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below. Until next time.